This is my journey. Inspired one story at a time, a library of leaders was created. It began as a journey to learn. As time went on, it began to grow. All it needed was a platform, and this podcast was created to listen, to inspire, to share. I am a storyteller, and this is my journey. Welcome to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. I'm your host, Steve Anderson, and this episode is brought to you by Silna Health. That's S-I-L-N-A, the premium front-end RCM company that leverages technology with a team of onshore insurance experts to handle benefit checks, eligibility checks, and prior authorizations. Finally, a vendor that you can trust, like a full-time employee that scales with your business. Just mention the Profiles in Leadership podcast to receive a free trial. Today, our guest is Claudia Longo. Claudia is a dynamic leader and social entrepreneur whose journey is one of resilience and purpose. A former Division I athlete, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at 18, just months before beginning her collegiate soccer career at the University of Washington. Despite this challenge, she returned to the field, playing several successful seasons for the Huskies while earning her undergraduate degree in neuroscience. After graduating, Claudia turned her experience into action, founding MS I'm Possible, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to empowering young adults living with MS. Through community support and financial aid programs, the organization provides critical resources to those navigating life with the disease. Claudia is also the managing director at BoardReady, where she plays a pivotal role in increasing diversity of thought in corporate boardrooms. Under her leadership, BoardReady has expanded its reach, helping companies build stronger and more forward-thinking boards. Her influence extends beyond boardrooms and nonprofits. In 2024, Claudia took the TEDx stage, sharing her insights on how to create change from challenge. Recognized for her impact, she has received numerous accolades, including being a Seattle Kraken Hero of the Deep nominee and receiving the Wayne Gittinger Inspirational Award at the Seattle Sports Star of the Year event. So, Claudia, welcome to have you on the program today. It's great to have you.
Steve, thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
So, give us a little context. We hear it a little bit in the bio, but just kind of tell us, you grew up in a suburb of Seattle, and you went to Issaquah High School, I believe, and had quite a great hope for a great soccer career in Division I, and then you got this diagnosis. So just tell us a little bit about how that went down and what decisions you made from there.
Absolutely. Well, I'm always glad to talk about life pre-diagnosis because sometimes I think it's easy to just label MS and then talk about life after that. But in fact, there's a lot of really important things that happened before. So as you know, I grew up in Issaquah, Washington. We have a big family, so I have three other siblings, and we're a very active family. So my dad was a big cyclist, my mom was a big runner, my sisters were always playing sports, my little brother picked up a basketball at age 1. So we were always going, and sports played just such a big part of our lives growing up. So much so that pretty early on, I realized that soccer was my passion. And I was training before school, I was training after school. I took my bag of 10 soccer balls quite literally everywhere I went. So by my freshman year of high school, I was 15 at the time, I had started receiving quite a few offers from colleges around the country to play Division I soccer. I had no idea what I was doing at the time. I just went on the visits. Everything seemed really cool. And of course, I wanted to play collegiate soccer. So as luck would have it, I decided to play at the University of Washington. I stayed close to home. I could have my parents come to my games. And that was actually the best decision I could have made, even at the age of 15, because as you've just mentioned, when I was 18 years old, just 1 month before graduating from high school, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So this was a very big blow, and again, was not on our radar. I had been experiencing some pretty weird symptoms, which I'm sure we'll get into all of that down the road. But
Yeah.
This diagnosis came at a time where all my friends were going to prom and graduation, and here I was in the infusion center. But luckily, I was staying home for college. And so, though I had to take a little bit of time off of school and soccer my freshman year, I got to get back to the field by my sophomore and junior year. I was doing all my treatments in Seattle while also playing in Seattle and having my family in Seattle. So it really was one of those things that I couldn't have planned it any better to
Yeah.
stay home.
It sounds like it. Yeah, that's great. Now let's back up a little bit too. As you're well aware, I know your parents not well. Your dad, he's a tenacious cyclist. Can't keep up with him, that's for sure. But he's also cardiologist, correct? MD.
Yes, he
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
So
And s-
both my parents are actually doctors. My dad's a cardiologist and then my mom's a pediatrician. And then
okay.
I have two sisters that are in medical school. So
Okay.
I'm the
Wow.
divergent one that decided to take a whole different path.
Yeah. Well, let's back up a little bit because in your TEDx talk, which was absolutely fabulous, by the way, I thought you did a fantastic job on that. When you were, I think, 11 years old, your mom got a real serious diagnosis, and I was intrigued of how you reacted to that. So share with us what you did and why you did that.
Yeah, well, it is an important part of my story, and I'm glad I had the platform to share that on TED because, like I said, when I started this, oftentimes it's like, oh, the girl with MS that's, doing things. But if you rewind 10 years, what had happened at that point in my life, I was 11, um, and my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And at the time, again, I had no idea really what that meant. I was just realizing that she was going to have surgeries and chemotherapy, and people were bringing meals, and it was all pretty overwhelming. So when it all happened, I remember that the day she told us, and something in me said, I need to do something for my mom. And I was crazy enough to think that I should shave my head with her when she was going to lose all of her hair from chemotherapy. So I told her that day I was going to do it, and I told my friends, and they all thought I was crazy, and no one really thought I was going to do it. I mean, at times I didn't even think I was going to do it because that was crazy. This was also the summer going into sixth grade, into middle school, with brand new teachers, brand new friends, brand new everything. So going into your first day there with a buzz cut rather than, long lanky hair is a very questionable move. So
Yeah.
anyway, I remember being in the bathroom with my mom and together we both just shaved our heads. And in that moment, um, I realized, and that's what I say in the TED Talk of how to create change from challenge. I think I felt a little bit helpless. I felt like things were out of my control, but I knew there was a way I could support my mom, and that was my way of showing it. And so I say early on that that really set the foundation for then how I would approach, obstacles and hardships down the road, such as this MS diagnosis.
Did she try to talk you out of it, or did you?
She did.
Yeah.
He did, my family did. Practically anybody I talked to tried to talk me out of it because they
Yeah.
knew the implications of showing up to sixth grade with basketball shorts and a buzz cut, and that I, like you heard in the TED Talk, got kicked out of the girls' bathroom. I got called a boy in a bikini. I mean, there are endless stories. But I like to say it built a little bit of character at that age. So
Well, that picture that you showed on the TEDx talk on the screen, you did look like a little boy with that
and
hair.
I dressed the part too, so I don't blame
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah,
So it was a very interesting time.
yeah, yeah, that really is. But what do you think, by doing that, you said it kind of set the stage, but what do you think it did to your and your mom's relationship, and then just looking forward to it was really brave. I mean, that's a brave thing to do as an 11-year-old girl. So I'm just intrigued that that was a bold move, and you did it. And what do you think? How has that made you who you are today?
Yeah, well, I'll answer that in two parts. One is with my mom, because I will never stop talking about how incredible my mother is. Because if roles were reversed, she would have done the exact same thing. And I think maybe that idea came because I'm her daughter and I'm wired very similar to her. So my mom and I have a very special connection, one that she also shares with all three of the other kids. I don't know how she does it, but she's so close to all of us, and she's so close to so many of my friends, and they feel like my mom is their mother. So I could go on and on about a whole nother podcast about how amazing my mom is. Um, But I think the second part of that question is what did it teach me? Well, I joke about these stories of being called a boy in a bikini and getting kicked out of the bathroom, but at the end of the day, I knew my truth. And I had done something for my mom, and I wasn't going to let any of the other external noise affect my decision. And so, if anything, I think it taught me to be pretty bold.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that word is a lot of how I feel empowered to do the things I'm doing today. I mean, fast forward 10 years, I was a senior in college and I started telling people I was going to start a nonprofit. And they looked at me the same way they looked at me 10 years ago when I was in basketball shorts with a buzz cut. They thought I was crazy. And I think it really made me, though, realize that bold steps get a little bit easier when you know your truth and you so strongly believe in it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let's go back now to you're living your dream, you're playing soccer, you're in high school, things are going pretty well, and then you start to have these weird symptoms. So tell us a little bit about what that was, what the symptoms were, and then how you dealt with it. I mean, you've got two parents who are doctors, so I'm sure they were involved in this as well as trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
Absolutely, Steve. And that's a good call out because they were pivotal in how I was able to be diagnosed and treated so quickly. So my sophomore year, it was in the summer, and I had started experiencing a lot of numbness and tingling. I was tired after my games. But again, I was training a lot and studying and hanging out with friends. There was a lot going on. And so when this numbness and tingling set in, I convinced myself that maybe my cleats were too tight or that I need to pull back from training or kind of just rationalized what I was feeling, and it went away. And as we know, that's how relapsing remitting MS presents itself. It will flare up for 6 weeks and then it will go away. And so that's what it did my sophomore year. And I really didn't think anything of it for the next year or so until my senior year. It was my senior season of soccer. We were going after our second state championship. We had a target on our backs. Pressure was high. And at the end of every single post game or postseason game, I was throwing up. And I remember the halftime of our quarterfinal game, I was laying flat on the bench, like not able to move because I was so tired. And I thought maybe I was out of shape or I had caught the stomach flu or something, and none of it was making sense. So anyway, we ended up still winning state that year. I'm not really in any of the photos after because I felt ill. I was tired. I didn't feel good. I was again extremely fatigued. So the second time around, it was not only numbness and tingling, but then this like extreme fatigue and exhaustion. And then a few months later, I had this onslaught of other neurologic symptoms that made it pretty clear something was going on. So I had what they called the Lermite sign. I would look down and electric shocks would go down my back and legs. So I was like keeping my head up and I was making jokes. I'm like, Mom and Dad, I just got to keep my head up. Like, don't look down. Like, we were just trying to figure out what this was. And then when some bladder issues and other things came up, they soon realized there was something neurologic. And so I ended up seeing a neurologist on a Monday. I had MRIs on a Tuesday. I was diagnosed with MS on a Wednesday. I started steroids on a Thursday, and 2 weeks later, I had started my medication to stop disease progression. So thankfully and not thankfully, I was in a flare up, which made it very clear what was going on, and I could get, diagnosed and treated right away.
So when you talk about this family with three other siblings, where in the birth order are you?
I'm third. So I have two
Third?
older sisters and then a younger brother.
Okay. And I think it was interesting too how you dealt with those weird symptoms to begin with. I mean, when you were exhausted and you just felt, well, I'm out of shape, so I'm going to have to work harder and I'm going to have to train more. And if you, weren't, you didn't have the feeling in your legs, and so you tried harder to get better at your kicking skills. And so it's just, I think it's interesting that your approach to that was not to feel sorry for yourself, but dig deeper and try and solve the issue, as it were.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of sport, right? And I'm thinking back to my senior season, I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself. I was surrounded by 15 of my best friends, and we all wanted that state championship so bad that I was willing to do whatever it takes to go after it. And I speak to it now, I no longer play sports, but well, I shouldn't say that. Once a week, I lace up my cleats and I go play a full 90 in a co-ed soccer league, which is fantastic because I love it. Um, but I think it's so important to have that team aspect to it in anything you're dealing with, or else it's so easy to get, in your own silo and feel sorry for yourself.
And the symptoms are, there's nothing um, normal, as far as the symptoms go. Not that symptoms are normal, but I'm a physical therapist, so I know that in treating MS patients, the symptoms are all over the board. It's different for everybody. And so to try and figure out what that means or what, I can just imagine that was a tough journey to try and figure it out. Even with two physicians in the house, it's still hard to figure that out, especially at your young age and as active as you were.
Yeah, and again, to your point, I'm so grateful to have a medical family because when we were figuring it all out, and then when I got diagnosed, I basically had translators in the room with me who could take all this information about a diagnosis and about a neurologic condition and kind of put it in layman terms for me and say, hey, Claude, here's what's going on, and here's how we're going to get through it. And so again, just can't speak enough about how amazing my family is because they truly were so pivotal during that time.
So you win your second state championship in soccer. Things are looking good. You're on your way to a world-class university with, great history in sport. And now you have to call your coach and tell her that, the new recruit coming in isn't exactly as she'd thought. So tell us about that conversation and how that went.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, Steve, because it was a moment that honestly pretty much changed the trajectory of my life. As I said earlier, thank God I, stayed home and went to UW because I think if I would have gone to a school out of state, it would have been, first of all, really challenging to get my care and then also try to get back on the soccer field. So already starting, I was so thankful that the call was to somebody that lived 20 minutes away from me. But when I did call my coach, I remember that so vividly, and I, told her I had MS and I was still determined to get back on the field. And the first thing she did is say, number one, we'll get you on the field. And number two, how we'll get you on the field is we'll get our nutritionists and our doctors and our trainers, and everyone's going to sit in one room and we'll figure this out. It was really new. She'd never had a player with MS. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if how I was feeling in the current moment would be how I was feeling when I started playing again. So there was so much unknown. But what Leslie did in that moment is she took the unknown and she created a plan. And so while everything didn't always go according to plan, I at least felt supported by number one, the plan that we created, but number two, the people that created the plan. And that was really pivotal when I, did get back to the field eventually.
Yeah, it's a great story, and again, there's so many great coaches in the world and leaders, whether it's business or sport or whatever. But you just think back on her reaction to it, and to me, it's very admirable because it could have been, oh gosh, well, she could have been thinking in her head, well, we've got a lot of other recruits that we didn't
Totally.
pick that we could replace you with or whatever, and it sounds like she just said no, even though you hadn't even been there yet, you're part of the team, you're part of us, we're going to do whatever it takes and we're not giving up on this. And that had to have been a great not only relief but real motivator for you.
Absolutely. And I think she realized how important at that point the team was going to be too, not only rallying the support staff, but the first day I got back to campus after I'd taken some time off, she had me get up in front of the team and share a little bit about my story and what I had been going through because she knew how important it was for the 30 other people that I was walking alongside this journey with to know what was going on and to know a bit about MS. And so, again, she handled it in so many amazing ways. And I have to tell you, Steve, the full circle moment 2 weeks ago was that she's now the GM of the Seattle Reign. And they do this thing where they honor, they call it a legend for every one of their home games. And Leslie is the one that presented that award to me at halftime of the game. And it was just amazing to see how much she had supported me on the field. But now I'm feeling that same support off the field. So it's pretty cool.
Well, again, a sign of a great leader that not only
Um,
leads during the time of working with you, but also is willing to sponsor you and willing to support you further on after the sport's done and after you've moved on. So Those are true friends and great mentors and people that yeah, latch on and hold tight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you played at the University of Washington. Did you play all 4 years? Were you able to complete the time, or how did that story go?
Well, the thing about living with MS is that you're not just living with MS, you're also living in the times that everyone else is living in. So as luck would have it, the season that I came back to the field was COVID. And the world shut down, which means no one was playing soccer. And so we got sent home. I kid you not, when I was finally back and healthy, ready to play a season, was when everything had shut back down. So
Oh, geez.
um, I went home. As it turns out, too, I was playing pickup soccer while we were all home and couldn't train with our teams and ended up getting a very nasty concussion. And that ended up sidelining me for another 6 months because not only was I dealing with a concussion, but it prompted a flare up. So that meant steroids and trying to figure out how to get my MS back in order. And so my first true season was my senior season. And then I did play my fifth. So, two and a half seasons, but it was plenty for me because again, it was less about the number of seasons I played and more about the journey of getting back there and being with my teammates.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting? Because on the front end of that, all you can think about is playing time and winning games and doing all that. But really, on the back end of it, you see that you were part of a family, you were part of an organization, you've got lifelong friends, you've got people that are going to support you forever. And it's hard to see that on the front end, but on the back end, that's really the most important thing.
Good point. And I think I got to see that because of my diagnosis. Again, I wouldn't choose this for the world, but it did give me a unique lens. And I saw the back end while I was still very much in it. I know I look back on my high school years and, like, to your point, I was focused on winning. I was focused on state championships. I was focused on assisting and goals and all of that. And you kind of miss out on these special moments. Whereas because I had to take a step back from everything with the diagnosis, I could see really what my sports journey was all about. And yes, goals are fun and winning games is awesome. But I think I got a deeper appreciation for the journey because of all that I was going through at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, also in your TED Talk, you said something that I thought was really interesting. You said finding humor in hardship and strength and smiles. So, you kind of had this the three L's that you talked about in the TED Talk. So, share with us a little bit about the three L's, what they are, and then especially that one on humor and laughter. That was one that you probably most people wouldn't have predicted with a diagnosis like you had at such a young age.
Yeah, well, the three L's you're referencing aren't live, laugh, love like some people think. It's my little spin on the traditional three L's, and I have to say, it was something that I actually created with one of my dear mentors, who kind of took a look at my life and said, "I think if we look at this, it comes down to three things, and that is learning, laughing, and leaning in." In terms of learning, there was so much learning during my MS diagnosis. I had to learn what it was, I had to learn what treatment meant, I had to learn what the reality was. But more than anything, and this is what I talk about in the TED Talk, I had to learn by doing it myself. I could go on WebMD or read textbooks or do all that stuff, but at the end of the day, MS presents so differently in everybody and even individually in myself. There's some days where I feel like I have MS, and some days I completely forget about it. And so a huge part of navigating that journey was learning by just doing, by trial and error. The second one is laughing. And if anybody knows me, I always have a smile on my face, and it's genuine because I look back to when I was first diagnosed and I was in the infusion center about every 3 weeks getting treatment. And I was taking some pretty heavy meds that made me a little bit loopy. And so what started in the infusion center as fun times and jokes and we had to, I think, be silenced by the nurses in the infusion center because we were having so much fun, really then trickled down to how I was approaching it at home. So we would leave the infusion center, I would go home, and my mom and I were singing Shania Twain in the kitchen or playing cards and having a great time. And so while everything felt like it was falling apart, I had to find the joy in the little everyday situations. And that's exactly what we did. So we made infusions fun. I kid you not, this sounds crazy. We made throwing up fun. I mean, you just kind of had to put a positive spin on things. Does that mean I was always happy? Absolutely not. But it meant that I had this mindset where I woke up and I chose joy. And I think that was so important.
Yeah,
And
impressive.
then the
Yeah.
third thing was leaning in. And I think if anybody knows me, they know I lean in 1,010%. So that really is just like buying into the process, leaning into to it all.
And the great thing about, being a leader, as I see you are now, is that, you have positive effects on other people. So tell us a story about Lexi. Lexi saw you and you changed your life. So tell us about that.
Oh man, that is, yeah, one of the most special things that happened. So, you know, when I was first diagnosed, Steve, I'd done a little bit with the MS community, but it was hard because here I was at age 18 trying to be this Division 1 athlete. And at the same time, I was told, oh, are you in a wheelchair? Are you on disability? Have you thought about a catheter for when your bladder stops working? And I was told all these things that, yes, maybe that narrative is true for some folks that live with MS. But for me, in that current moment at 18, I knew I wanted to get back on the field. And so originally I pulled back from really talking to people with MS, from meeting people with MS, until Lexi. And what happened with that is I was contacted by a mutual friend who had heard about Lexi's story. She was a 16-year-old who had just been diagnosed with MS as well. She was a club soccer player, loved playing, loved the team aspect, loved everything about soccer. And as soon as she was diagnosed, she not only figured she couldn't play, but was told that same narrative of you shouldn't play, it's not good for you, you won't be able to play again. Think about other things. And so Lexi and I got to talking, and it turns out one of the games we played out in Pullman, she could come drive and watch me play. And so that day was we were playing the Cougs, which for anybody that knows the rivalry between UW and Wazoo, it's like pretty intense. So
Yeah,
a
yeah.
fun game for Lexi to come to. And it happened to be the last game of my soccer career as well. It was our last game. We weren't making the tournament, so it was fun. And we just had, I think I had a smile on my face the entire 90 minutes because we were winning, we were playing well, we were in our groove. And I came off the field smiling from the end of my soccer career, but then looking up at the stands and seeing Lexi. And that moment really marked a shift because while one chapter was coming to a close, another one was just beginning. And I say that because after Lexi and I met and chatted and talked about everything, that following week, she started playing soccer again. And all she needed to see was that somebody else was doing it to know she could too. And that really is the impetus for then why I started my own foundation because I just realized that similar to me, all I needed to see was somebody else doing it. And I had a few of mentors like that showed me the way to know that it was possible. So that's the Lexi story. It's so fun now
Yeah.
because Lexi's now serving as a mentor for a lot of our other young adults with MS, which again has just been such a full circle moment.
Great. So you're still in contact with Lexi and still
Oh
see what
yeah,
she's doing? Yeah, that's
absolutely.
wonderful. Well, let's talk a little bit about your foundation. So, I think you were on track for following the family history and becoming an MD and going to medical school and whatever. And then you just said, wait, I think I want to start a nonprofit. So, tell us why you made that decision and then tell us a little bit about the nonprofit and what it does.
Absolutely. Well, when starting it, to piggyback off what I was just saying, I came home from that experience with Lexi and I had this idea in my mind that I needed to create a platform for young adults with MS to get together. There was nothing at the time. There were no resources for young adults with MS. No one was talking about young adults with MS. So it not only was the awareness piece, but it was the resource piece, and that was a huge gap. So I started looking into nonprofits and what that meant and what we would do. And again, I was studying neuroscience. So I was never in the business school. I was like dissecting cockroach down at the med center. I had no background in business, let alone nonprofits. And so at the time I was studying for the MCAT and thought that, all right, I'll take the MCAT, I'll apply to med school, and I'll do this little passion project on the side. Well, with the help of some really, really fantastic people, this passion project got incorporated to the state. We had a bank account. We all of a sudden had these pillars of how we were going to support. And about a month before my MCAT, we were officially official. We hadn't launched yet. We had a website, but we hadn't really told anybody. It was still kind of mum's the word because, geez, let me take the MCAT in May, graduate from college in June, and then in the fall we can kind of launch all this. Now I'm saying all this because the crazy story, and I'll try to keep this brief, is that the night before my MCAT, and I didn't get to tell this story at the TED Talk, and this one's fun. The night before my MCAT, they tell you to like chill out, not think about anything, just relax. I get a call and I was told I was gonna that Saturday, so 2 days from that night, be awarded the Seattle Kraken Hero of the Deep Award. I'm like, great, I'll get up there, they'll share my story, they'll show some pictures, awesome. And then they said the best part is, well, we donate $32,000 to a nonprofit of your choice. And I go, well, that's interesting. I have an incorporated nonprofit. We've got a bank account. We just haven't launched yet. And they're like, no problem. Launch tomorrow and we'll announce it at the game on Saturday. So sure
Wow.
enough, the day I took my MCAT, I kid you not, Steve, our team, while I was in the MCAT, launched MS Impossible. And when I came out of that 8-hour test and turned on my phone, it was blowing up with, oh my God, you've just started a nonprofit. And then the next day we were sitting in the Kraken game, and the first thing to hit our bank account was $32,000 from the Kraken. So I share that because that was really my sign that something different was waiting for me.
This was a calling. This was a calling,
It was a
right?
calling.
Yeah.
So that was a special story. But today, Steve, we've been around for about 2 years now, and really our mission is to provide community support and financial aid to young adults with MS. It comes in a variety of forms, but really what we say is connection is at the core of all that we do. So whether it's virtual monthly calls, in-person retreats, grants to cover a lot of therapeutic approaches that often aren't covered by insurance, we really are able to support young adults in a very tangible, actionable way, which has been amazing.
Well, I know a little bit about nonprofits as my wife ran one as well, and so um, let's use this platform. If someone's inspired by all this and wants to donate to your foundation, how do they do it?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. If you visit our website, there's a way to donate right on there. So ms-impossible.org is our website. Um, your wife knows this all too well too, especially because I know they did a lot of events with what she was doing. It's beyond just money too. We say time, treasure, and talent. And so we're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for people that are passionate about our mission and have ideas. I just got off a call with a family friend of mine who was like, have you thought about this and this and this? And I'm like, no, because I'm so much in the business that I don't get to think about what people outside the business are looking at us from the outside in. And so all that's to say, whether it's donating or whether it's volunteering or advising, whatever it is, we're always looking for people that are interested in helping out.
That's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit too about I want to make sure to get into what's this board ready piece? Is this
Oh man,
I
it
mean,
is.
what is that a totally different business you're working in
Well,
or what?
it's interesting, Steve, because while the mission is very different than supporting young adults with MS, the business model and what I'm doing day to day is very similar. BoardReady was something I couldn't have predicted, but something that I couldn't now live without. And it is a different nonprofit that is all about expanding networks in the boardroom and really trying to bring about more refreshment and turnover of boardrooms with newer perspectives, diverse perspectives, and newer directors. And so when I originally started my nonprofit, knew that it was a lot to talk about MS. It was a lot to work with it, help people with it, and there was no way I could have that be my full-time job. So the best thing I did was find this. At the time, it was like a part-time project associate role at BoardReady. And I say this all the time. My bosses know it was really, I was like, I just need to get a paycheck and pay my rent so I can focus on my baby, which is MS Impossible. And now over a year later, it's so interesting because I am now full-time at BoardReady, the managing director there, and I love it. I love who I work for. I love the work that we're doing. And so it's interesting for me. Every day I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I love this one. And then the next day it's, oh my God, I love I love the other one. So I'm really in a place now where I'm managing two companies that I care deeply about, and that have a real tangible impact, which is great.
That's awesome. And I think that you said, didn't you, that part of your leadership journey as well was that you started working with these two very independent, amazing leaders themselves, and got you inspired, but also taught you a lot. So tell us a little bit about them and what they did for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what's interesting is I've been advised like, oh, when you're on podcasts, like don't drop names. And I can guarantee you that there will never be a day where I can't drop the names of Deanna Oppenheimer and Phyllis Campbell because they, to your point, are some of the most respected, admired executives in our state and honestly, sometimes even in our country. And so a little bit about them, they, were bankers in Washington State and took to the boardroom pretty early on in their careers. And at that time, and still today, we see, they were the only woman or people of color in the boardroom. And so what they did is kind of similar to what I did, and it was to take matters into their own hands and say, "Hey, let's change this for the future generation." And so what they did was created BoardReady as a nonprofit to connect the talent that we have. We have about 1,000 candidates in our talent pool, and we connect them with corporate clients who are looking to, expand and strengthen their boardroom. And it's really interesting that you bring those two up because we started the call talking about Leslie, my coach at UW. And
Yeah.
when I was with Leslie, I was a sponge. The leader that I became on my team was simply a reflection of the way that Leslie handled herself. And now fast forward a few years, and the leader that I think I am now in the corporate world is simply a reflection of the way that Deanna and Phyllis have presented themselves. So I feel very fortunate to have had some incredible mentors and role models that really shape the way that I carry myself, that I talk about our work. I find myself often quoting them in things that I speak about, and I'm like, where did this come from? And it's just because, I'm lucky enough to spend some great time with them. So it's great.
Well, it's just the epitome of what leadership is, which is lifelong learning. And you definitely, as you said, you're a sponge. It sounds like you're someone who's willing to be mentored and willing to have an open mind and learn and grow, and that's what it's all about. So you're doing it. You're killing it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, the last thing I'll say on that subject is again, when I started this nonprofit and when I took the role at BoardReady, I had no, for lack of better terms, I did not know what I was doing. And I think that's the beauty of it because here I was, this neuroscience pre-med soccer player stepping into the business world. And I could admit, I was like, I don't have the answers to a lot of these questions. So let me go seek out help. And I think early on, if I look back, that's one of the best things I ever did was say, okay, I don't have this figured out. I still don't. Let's be clear. A couple years
Yeah.
later, we're still all figuring it out. But learning how and when to tap the people in my network for help has been so, so key.
Well, I think again another great example of we don't know what it is. I mean, again, look at my story. If you would have told me that I would have ended up as a CEO of a pretty large company, back when I was treating patients as a physical therapist, it wasn't even on the radar. I just had no, you just don't know. But I think what hopefully I did, and I can certainly see what you're doing, is when you see opportunity, you, as you say, lean in, you go for it, you take a risk, you you embrace something you know nothing about because it interests you and you have passion around it, and that's what it's all about. That's what makes it fun, and that's how you grow.
Exactly. It is fun. You have a lot of fun along the way, so good call out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, sitting here thinking about this, in anticipation of our discussion today, what haven't I asked you that you want to be sure and get in the program today?
Oh man, well, I think we um covered a whole lot of it. Let me think. Um the only thing I will say is a lot of times now, especially as these few companies are starting to grow, a lot of people are asking me, well, what's next? And what's your next move and where are you jumping to? And if I was in the medical path, I would always know. It would be med
Right.
school, and then it would be residency, and then it would be a fellowship. And okay, then I would, be a doctor and it'd all be figured out. Now I'm in this world where I'm running an organization that helps young adults with MS and one that brings more diversity of thought to corporate boardrooms. So where that leads me, I don't really know. And I think that's the beauty of where I'm at today. is I hope early on in my career, I've been able to find a way to bring passion and purpose into all that I'm doing. And so I think it's okay to say that I don't know what my next step is. I obviously know I want to work for great people and work for mission aligned organizations, but just really excited about what the future holds wherever it takes me.
Yeah, that's great. So, Claudia, at this point in the interview, I always ask my guests the same common question. So that question is, in relation to leadership, what is a pearl of wisdom that you could leave us with today?
Again, I'm gonna just copy and paste from one of my great mentors. She says, "Take a chance, give a chance." And what's interesting for me right now, I again do not have any of this figured out. I'm still young, things are exciting and they're happening. But right now, I have a unique ability to do a bit of both. I'm taking chances and at the same time giving a whole lot of chances. I'm taking risks with business decisions, but at the same time, we are giving chances to so many young adults with MS right now that need it. And so I think always keeping that in mind of like, okay, if you're going after somebody, after something, who else are you bringing along? Um, and that's been really important to me is as I continue to grow and scale all this up, it's not, we're all rising together. The team's rising, the young adults with MS are rising, the aspiring board directors are rising. We're all in this together. And so it ties back to that team component, right? Of early on, I was never just about me and woe is me. And now I kind of get to implement that in the daily work that I'm doing.
Wow, you are way beyond your years in understanding what leadership's all about, and I congratulate you on that. It's impressive.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Well, Claudia, this has been a real pleasure. You're just so inspiring. I saw your TED Talk, and I just reached out and I said I have to talk to you. So, and I'm so glad I did. You're impressive. What you've done is very admirable, and you're doing good work, and you're trying to save others and bring others along, and it's just really impressive. So, I just want to say thank you, from our community for doing what you do, and keep pushing on. Your parents have got to be so proud of you. It's just I can just see their smiles right now. So congratulations on that, and do please say hi to your parents for me. It's good to see that their hard work as parents is paying off in big time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Steve. They'll be happy to hear that we did this today.
Yeah. Well, take care, and I'm sure we'll run into each other down the road somewhere. But sure appreciate you having on today, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks. You too, Steve.
Okay. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. To listen to all my interviews, subscribe to Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and many other popular podcast platforms. Some of these interviews are on video, and you can search YouTube for Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson. You can also access the entire library of interviews on my website, orange.coaching.com, and that is orangetheword.coaching.com, and go to the Media Center and click on Podcasts or Video Gallery. You can also enter the website from pilpodcast.com.